Hello. It's been a while since I've done one of these Zoom videos. So I thought I'd just kind of give you a little catch up about what I've been up to. And just some thoughts that had just come into my mind that I seem to be drawn to. So I thought I'd chat about them. They're relating to kind of why do we chase the path that we chase? Should we go with opinion? Should we go with gut feeling? Should we go with what feels to be like the soul's calling? Should we be guided by spirit guides? All of the above, none of them, something different. So, this is just opinion. That's all I'm saying is an opinion. Um, there's lots of people that inspire me as far as books that I've read and experiences that you kind of you get to know about and you think, wow, what if I could do something like that? Um, and there's every chance that we'll follow a path that resembles someone else's, someone that we aspire to be like. But for me, I like sitting in seance conditions. I like to be in this room, which is a seance room. And it's where I do all of my work, my teaching with spirit. So this room has been for like more than 10 years, the focus of when I sit for spirit. Um, but I was kind of thinking to myself, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine, and the the mindset came up that when we're doing something that our soul is really aligned with. And what I mean is, when you really know without even thinking that you're doing what you should be doing, that kind of feeling, that's kind of what I mean. Now, I'm no expert at it, and, she's much more knowledgeable. But we were kind of chatting about it, and, it gets you into thinking, doesn't it? You think, well, am I doing, what I should be doing? Is there more that I can do? Do I need to work like someone else? And I was thinking about the people that, really inspire me. So it's people like this lady, Minnie Harrison and Tom Harrison. So where have we got there? That's her son. Now, this image was taken in infrared, and this was up in Middlesbrough. And that person here, where are we? There. The spirit world materialized using ectoplasm. So that sheet that you see is actually ectoplasm. But what they've done is they've concentrated their efforts into making the face identifiable to the person. Now, this person is obviously alive, this person is in spirit, and that is a materialization. Look at that. That is just mind blowing, isn't it? And so, as the book says, a lifetime's experiences of physical phenomena and materializations through the mediumship of Minnie Harrison. Now, that lady was just beyond amazing. This book, one of my most favorite books. If you're into physical mediumship phenomena and you want to learn about people's recollections, you've got to get this book. I mean, it's mind blowing. And there's a couple of photos there. Look. So the photo, as you look at the screen on the left, is Minnie's in a state of obviously deep entrancement, and that's ectoplasm has been pulled out of her mouth and it's laying in her lap. The picture on the right, as you look at it, is ectoplasm again pulled out of the mouth, and the trumpet is being cantilevered at a right angle from roughly the solar plexus area. You can see the solar plexus area of Minnie. And so, as it says there, trumpet supported um, as an ectoplasmic rod, and that's in infrared, and both photos are in infrared. Now, when you read this book, you realize that these these people, like Minnie in particular, I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. So I don't want to spoil it because you really should read it. But when you read this, you think to yourself, some people are following like I don't want to use divine calling, but they're following what I think is their life's purpose. like their soul's purpose. So the ability to work with spirit in this way wasn't dictated by them saying, I need to train as whatever. It was literally them placing themselves in the arms of the spirit world. So here's a wonderful. I'll give you some context for this. There's two pictures that I'm now going to show you. So the top one, it says is Grandad Besant, full materialization taken on the 7th of February 1948. Now, look at this. So again, they've used ectoplasm to clothe his body to a degree, and the very dark bits are where they've done the beard with ectoplasm. Then below is the front cover photo of Aunt Ag, and that was taken by her son using a brighter red light. Oh, bear with me. Yeah, so Aunt Ag against the black curtain, behind which his mother was in a deep trance. On the left was his father, who had obviously moved during the seance, hence his picture was slightly blurred. But that is materialization of two different people through Minnie Harrison. A fabulous book. You must read it. One of my very favorites. Here's another great book. Oh, you can't see it as well because it's I'm using a green screen, but it is called Indridi Indridason, and he was the Icelandic physical medium. Again, there's absolutely wonderful recollections. This guy wasn't very old when he passed. Forgive it. This is because it's got the Northern Lights in green. The green screen is picking it up, but that is a wonderful book. Again, stuff that happened with this guy in Iceland, just beyond kind of belief almost. And there's in Indridi there, and there's so many recollections in this. There was stuff happening whereby levitations, direct voice, light phenomena. There's a piece in here where they talk about a spirit person, and this is in the late 19th century, I believe. But a spirit person had basically came into the seance room and told them about a big fire that had destroyed a large part of an area of Copenhagen. Um, yeah, so here it is. I'll just read it to you. So bear with me. It says on the 24th of November 1905, a new communicator appeared. He spoke Danish and introduced himself as Mr. Jensen, which is a common Danish surname, and he gave his profession as a manufacturer. At this time, a break was made for the medium to rest as he had complained of being tired. It seems that the seances often lasted a long time. One of 5 hours duration is reported. That's crazy. When the seance resumed later in the evening, Jensen returned. He stated that he had been to Copenhagen, bear in mind this is a spirit communicator, and described a fire raging in a factory in one of the streets. About an hour later, he said that the fire had been brought under control. Jensen's statements were recorded and a written account was made and deposited with the Bishop of Iceland. Copenhagen is over 1,300 miles from Reykjavik. There was no telephone or telegraph communication with Iceland in 1905. Newspapers arrived by ship close to Christmas, and that confirmed that a fire had indeed broken out on the 24th of November in a factory at Store Kongensgade 63. The fire was brought under control in an hour, as had been stated during the seances. None of the sitters recognized Jensen as he falls into the category of a drop-in communicator. So, with no possible way, 120 years ago, of telegraph or telephone being used to give information to the seance sitters, a spirit communicator came into that seance, told them about something happening 1,300 miles away, where there was no conceivable way that that information could have been known, other than life being eternal, the spirit world being intelligent, and being aware of what was happening. That is mind blowing. And that's just not even scratching the surface. Wonderful. So it makes you think this guy was just had this presence of energy, this potential within him that he allowed to be developed. And people helped him and provided opportunities for his development. Um, but there was no college to go to, was there? There was no like center of whatever studies. It was there was something inherent. His soul's purpose was to work as that type of medium. And so he did. Now, many of you will know this guy and Stuart Alexander. Now, I could talk about the wonderful things about this guy till the cows come home, until they've come home and gone to bed. Now, for those of you that have had the privilege, and I do think it's a privilege of meeting Stuart, he is a humble guy. He is friendly, very amenable. He can never do enough to help you. You know, he's always there to help you. Just such a genuine gentleman, and he really is a gentleman in the true sense of the word. He is the only physical medium that I have seen in person, and many of you that watch this would have also seen him. And when you see the like the mist, like the cloud of black or dark ectoplasm moving from the cabinet, and you see it going across the table that's underlit with a red light, and you see it forming into a fist and then banging down really hard on that table. When you see the trumpet flying around the room with the um, luminous band, and you know that people are shoehorned into that room at Ray and June's in Hull, and you hear the voice of the spirit guide speaking through that trumpet. It blows your mind when you see matter through matter. And lots of you have got um, the cable ties from that experiment. When you've heard that voice of Walter, and you listen to Frida and all of the people that work with Stuart, and when you listen to his own recollections of um, the deep love, the deep respect that he has for being devoted to the spirit world, and I really think it was devotion, and still is. You think to yourself that here is a gentleman that, by his own recollections, spent 12 years sitting pretty much every single week at the same time, same place, more often than not. Um, and just saying, look, the spirit world, it is in your hands. Do with me what you will. If that doesn't inspire you, I don't know what will. That a top read. Do get yourself a copy of that if you haven't already got one. It is wonderful, 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 wonderful. Something slightly different here. Again, it's some physical mediumship, but this time it's through the work of the Skull Experiment and Robin Foy. Let's see if I can find you a photo. Are there any photos here? Don't know if there are in this book, but there are in the other book that he's got. But anyway, this book by Robin Foy is a very good book. It details the accounts of sitting in the Skull Experiment on the border of Norfolk and Suffolk, the county where I live. Again, they worked in a different way. They were using germanium, they were using a glass, a dome, and they were communicating in a different way. But when you read about the recollections and the experiences of I think it was people from the SPR, the Society of Psychical Research, um, taking, the old-fashioned camera films, like 25 mil. Is it 25 mil or whatever it is? The old-fashioned camera film in the containers in brand new, like foil packets, put in a box, padlocked with the key in the psychical researcher's pocket. And I think Thomas Edison was one of the people whose signature was verified, where they impressed upon the camera film um, words and then the signature of Thomas Edison, amongst many others. There's pictures of what appears to be like alien worlds with pyramids and um, different colored skies, all sorts of stuff. So the other book is really good. It's got lots of photos. Um, so they worked in a very different way. Okay, but it was still guided by spirit. It was like, what can you do? How can you make your presence known? And there's sort of times where you just have to say, look, just because it's unbelievable doesn't mean it isn't true. All right. There's many things that mankind in his wisdom said was impossible until it was done, and then it's possible, and suddenly it becomes the truth. So maybe this spooky world that we work in is the same. Then you've got someone that worked in a very different way, but some of the things that happened again would almost be miraculous. That's Harry Edwards. Okay, so lots of you would have done healing. Lots of you would have worked with, you know, the healing energies, and maybe you feel inspired by Harry Edwards. Maybe you've, done stuff, that has been because of what you've read about him. I guess we could all say that great aspects of us are, I mean, here's him in the London's Royal Festival Hall. So this is a guy that absolutely backed himself to, to bring through the power, the connection to spirit. Maybe some of that was just about him and what he could do. Just maybe he had that certain something. But the ways in which we could work with the spirit world are probably only limited by our own beliefs. I think the spirit world is incredibly intelligent, incredibly aware of our potential. And I think if we kind of have this mindset where we say, look, I don't know where my potential lies. Show me, give me that sense, bring me into circumstances that allow me to fulfill that potential. And I think what I would say is that we will know something is right because it will feel right. You just know, don't you? So if someone said, should we go left or right? Should we eat this or this? I know it's, really simplifying it, but when you feel into it, you feel being drawn. You feel almost like your body, your soul knows that you need to turn left or turn right. You need to do this, follow this path or another. But when the logical, the human mind gets into it, we start to complicate things, don't we? And we start to make things just more difficult than they have to be. Now, someone that faced many difficulties in trying to sort of convince people, and I don't think he ever really needed to. Where's this guy? All right, so this is a wonderful book. Loads of you will know this. Leslie Flint, Voices in the Dark, His Life as a Medium. So this is the reissue that's been done by Carl Jackson Barnes. And so, he does a tremendous amount of work to promote and to support the work of, Mr. Flint. And here's a photo here, look, of where Leslie's been held and gagged for another test seance by two members of the SPR again. Now, no, let me just try and get that near the camera. So look at that. I mean, to try and show how authentic he is, he's been held and gagged. There was a time where he had a specific amount of colored water that he had to swallow, and then I think his mouth was taped shut, and then the voices still came, even though if it was him making the voices, he couldn't possibly have spoken. And then at the end of the seance, they took off the tape and he had to spit the water back into the vessel, the container. And there was the exact same amount that he'd swallowed. And so if the voices still happened after the water has been, or while the water was in his mouth, then how is that possible if it wasn't the spirit world creating the voice? So this is just a wonderful book. Again, support the work that people like Carl do. All right. It's wonderful to read about it. It's inspirational. But again, if we kind of, said to the spirit, well, I want to be the next Leslie Flint, or I want to be the next Gordon Higginson. There's another name that crops up regular. I want to be the next Harry Edwards. Why not be the next you? Whatever your name is, why not be you? And just allow whatever's going to happen to happen. What's wrong with that? Um, we can aspire to be like people, but is that really following the path that's best for you? That's the question you've got to ask yourself. Now, the next thing I wanted to show you is something that blew my mind, right? I'm not long back from the States, popped over there for a while. And as I was doing my ironing, um, because you got to do these things, haven't you? I don't mind ironing. Um, I'd walked upstairs, I think probably to get some more clothes or to take some upstairs. And when I came downstairs, I was in the kitchen, and our kitchen is like ceramic tile floors. And my attention was drawn to the floor. And I kind of looked down at the floor and I saw this coin. Now, that in itself isn't strange, although I'd been stood there for a couple of hours. So if something hit the floor, I would have heard it. But on the floor was this coin. Now, I don't know if I can get that close for you to see. There we go. Let's see if we can bring that into focus. Okay. Now, this coin, let's see if I can get the back of the coin. Okay, that has got Queen Victoria on it. And it is a silver 4 pence piece from 1848. Now, don't know whether you can see it. It's just trying to get it to focus. That coin is what, 177 years old, and that had been apported. So, for those of you that don't know what an apport is something materialized from another place in space and time, location, and rematerialized in the location that the spirit world want it to be in. Now, the the fact that that happened at all blew my mind. I've been told for a number of years now that the spirit world want me to sit for the development of physical mediumship. Didn't say what type, so your guess is as good as mine. But the fact that the coin appeared, it felt like it was a bit of a reminder of my path. And I've always felt drawn to, I don't particularly like the dark as such, but I've always felt drawn to and safe in the dark when I'm sitting with spirit. I feel like it's a place that I'm meant to be. So again, I'm coming back to this sense that it's always felt right. All right. It's always felt like it was something that I should be doing. Just seeing if I can get the camera to focus on that properly for you. There you go. 1848. Let's see if I can get that there. There's Queen Victoria. Come on, let's see if I can pick that up. There we go. So it's not in the best condition, but it's 177 years old. So what do you expect? But I thought to myself, what's the meaning of it? And um, a friend on Facebook, Angie, she messaged and she said 1848 was the year of the Hydesville rappings that kind of signifies the start of the modern spiritualism movement. So it was the like the peddler had died and was communicating with the Fox sisters in their home in Hinesville. Um, and is it coincidence that 1848 is the date on that coin? And the significance of the coin was that the date represented an aspect of mediumship that maybe my spirit friends are trying to remind me of, to say, look, this is part of your path. It so happened that, in the time in America, the opportunity to sit in sales conditions was going to present itself again. And, some interesting stuff happened. So again, I kind of try to second guess myself and who's not guilty of doing that. And you think, well, maybe I should try this, maybe I should try that. But maybe ask yourself the question, what feels like it's the right path? What feels like it's effortless to do it? And I think if you can become aware of that, if you can think to yourself, do you know what? This particular aspect of mediumship really feels effortless. It really feels like it's my calling, my meaning. I know that sounds a little bit kind of woo-woo, but I can't think of a better way of saying it. So when we sit in circle, it feels like it's the right thing to do. It feels like I'm doing what I'm meant to do. I don't know where it's leading, if it'll lead anywhere, but I have to trust, and we have to trust ourselves, don't we? Trust your intuition, trust your soul's calling. What is it saying to you? Often, when I'm doing trance, I know that the guides will answer a question. Often people say, look, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I follow this path or that path? And one of the guides will always say to them, you do what makes your heart sing. So think about it. What does he mean when he says that? Do what makes your heart sing. It's do what feels like it's your calling. So maybe the spirit world, in saying that very simple sentence, they are clarifying, emphasizing, showing us that to get the best out of your potential, you need to do what feels right. Don't try to, you know, paddle upstream when it's a lot easier for you to go with the flow and paddle downstream. No, that's not to say go with the flow and you just have to do where the river takes you, but it's to say that you need to respond to your own awareness. What's your awareness telling you? So this is a very, very special gift. All right, reminder, call it what you will. So I shall have to find a special way of acknowledging it, because that's the first time something like that has happened to me personally. There was no one else in the house at the time, only the dogs. So unless one of the dogs has physical mediumship potential within them, then I'm going to assume that it was down to the spirit world and myself. Now, lots of people have had stuff like this happen. So what has happened isn't like really, really rare in the realms of mediums, but it's really, really special. And it reminds me to sit without expectation. That's difficult because I always hope and wish and pray and beg and plead that something amazing will happen when we sit. Does it? More often than not, it doesn't. But stuff is still going on in the background. Stuff is still happening that we don't necessarily see on a day-to-day or a week-to-week basis. But when you look at your growth from day one to wherever you are, whether it's been days, weeks, years, or decades, then if you're honest, you can see that you've come a long way. And so my task is to kind of sit with that question in a way. And I don't mean never question anything, but I mean allow my spirit friends to work in a way from a position of insight that I don't have. And so that's it. That's the thing. That's the story. All of those people, really inspirational, amazing, wonderful stories. No wonder there's books written about them. but I'm not them, and you're not them. You can be inspired by them, but why not live your life? And maybe there'll be a book written about you one day, and it'll say how you gave the spirit world the opportunity to do something wonderful, and it was whatever. So, the spirit world is loving, it is kind, it is just brings so much to so many people's lives. So let's let them do what they need to do. Let's let them work in a way where they can say, we've got the best from this medium. And there endeth the sermon. All right. So I hope you found it interesting to some degree or another. And there's lots of stuff happening. And I'm just really looking forward to connecting to people, connecting to the spirit world, and just sharing what little insight I have. And I hope that in some way you found it interesting. But I am going to leave you now. Thank you for watching, and I will catch up with you sometime soon. Take care, everyone. Look forward to catching up with you soon. Bye now.